Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast. My name is Giuseppe Castellano. In this podcast, I talk to folks in illustration, graphic design, publishing, animation, and other creative fields about their work, the lessons they've learned, and the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. In this episode, my guests are animator, podcaster, and CEO of Pencilish Studios, Tom Bancroft, and director, animator, and podcaster, Tony Bancroft. There are some in animation and illustration who think generative AI can be used as a tool if it's used ethically. As the Bancrofts and I discuss, that is a big if. Among other topics, we honor some lesser-known animation greats who deserve more love. And Tom and Tony tell us what it means to animate from the heart. I hope you enjoy our conversation. I'm not going to, but I was going to ask you a question about how do you, as twins, co-host a podcast? Because I was trying to imagine on my run this morning, if I had a twin, first, his name would probably be Vito. And secondly, would we get in each other's way? And I think the answer is yes.
Oh, but that happens. That's part of the fun. I mean, I think that happens all the time for us. We talk over each other, and we just did a video the other day for announcing Animation Y'all and our return for our expo that we put on. And there's a terrible part of it where I just kept going, and Tom was just like popping in on me. But I wanted to make my statement. Right. It goes back to, I worked with a guy that was like that. He would not stop. If you started to cut in on him, most people will like, oh, I got to stop now because somebody else is talking. Yeah. Right. He would not. He would completely just keep talking over you until you stopped. That's how he got his point across. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys read your reviews. I used to. No longer. Only because I haven't had a review in like 6 months or something. And so I stopped looking. Yeah. There was one review someone had given you guys years ago about someone laughing into a mic. And they were like, 2 stars, stop laughing into the mic. I'm driving or something like that.
I know. Yeah.
It's probably Tom.
Let's say it's Tom.
I do kind of, we don't read them very often.
If people knew the difference between us, they could actually call out Tom more often.
Well, I
mean, we do get, in all seriousnly, Tony, we do get that kind of stuff where, audio stuff is usually the most critiquey thing.
Yeah, that's what we get criticized for.
Well,
we've never had the best audio.
I've listened to a bunch of podcasts of yours. It's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been podcasting for more than 10 years. I've been podcasting for 5, and I'm still fighting my audio. I still don't like it. I still think my mic isn't sufficient.
Yeah.
You know how it is. Do you guys still feel that way, or is it just,
Oh, no, I feel like we got it. Yeah, we got
some
mics.
Pretty good mics now, but...
Ooh, that one has lights on it.
Yeah, we have they're gaming
so
mics.
That too.
Basically.
Wow.
Look at their rainbows and stuff.
Yeah, I don't have rainbows. Mine's just a beat up
rainbows
silver,
out.
Blue Yeti.
Yeah, it's just the magic to your voice.
Our mics are like mood lamps, basically.
Yeah. Do you have sponsors? I'm just interested.
I have had sponsors. Skillshare, Agency Access, Wacom. Do you chase sponsorships?
We've tried it. It's so hard.
It is. It's very
hard to get
hard.
Somebody that that is relevant to what we talk about. And,
right.
Yeah, and then I don't know. All the animation people are just old school. They don't really see podcasts as a big help to them. But they're wrong. Of course, they should know better.
Well, you guys make that joke a lot on your podcast. You say something like, "To our 7 listeners," and I'm like, "Come on, guys, you're bigger than that."
Yeah, we are. We don't keep up with it, though. I mean, honestly, kind of like you were saying about the reviews, we don't really look at, and we don't understand the numbers anyway, of how many downloads or whatever.
Right.
We did just recently look it up, and supposedly we're in the top 5%.
Oh, hello.
I don't know
what that means.
Of all podcasts, right? 5%.
Apparently, yeah. I just put in the number of downloads, and it said we were in the top 5%. But
which is sad for the other.
Mostly that's what made me feel bad.
95. Yeah.
I'm in a top 1% flex. Let's move on.
No.
Nice.
Thanks.
Did you just look that up?
No, I did look it up again ages ago. I used to be really obsessive about it because I'm human.
Yeah.
Maybe it's age, maybe it's maturity, maybe I give less of a damn. I don't know what it is, but I've just stopped looking. I will say that the podcast has gotten to a point, again, it's like you guys, I don't really know exactly how and why and what the numbers really mean, but it has gotten to a point now that the podcast is now quote unquote eligible for dynamic ad insertion through the host. So now listeners are hearing ads at the beginning and the end of my episodes, which is lovely. I get like pennies, but it adds up a little bit, I guess. The thing I don't really like about it just yet, and it's going to work itself out, I'm told, and I also have control, and I've been like banning over the past couple of weeks, is the ad will be like, Joe Biden ruined this country. Follow Trump's plan.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like that voice. In a world where Joe Biden, da-da-da-da-da. And then it's all...
So you like the ad, you agree with the ad, you just don't like the voice.
I don't like the voice. Yeah, the ad's fine.
Okay.
And then it's like this really aggressive, energy. Yeah. And then right after that, it's, hi, everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast.
I love that voice.
Yeah. So I need to work that out a little bit. I'm still working it out, folks, listeners. I'm still banning. The other day I heard a casino. It's like, you can gamble in the palm of your hand while you're waiting for the bus. And I'm like, I don't like gambling. So, okay, I need to stop what I was doing. Go to the where I can ban gambling, and I banned gambling. So anyway.
Well, at least you have some control.
Do have control.
That's nice.
There's kids listening.
It's a whack-a-mole, though. I'm sure I'm going to continue doing it. Speaking of doing things, so Tom, you produced a documentary called Pencils versus Pixels: The Rise, Fall, and Rise Again of 2D Animation, narrated by the voice of Mulan. Ming-Na Wen, who was also the assassin on Boba Fett. She was awesome. In it, we hear from animation vets about the past, present, and future of animation. It came out in 2023. Thanks to AI, a lot has happened on the pixel front since then.
Yes.
The two of you touch on this quite a bit on your podcast, but what are you seeing, hearing, expecting over the next few years in animation? Should we throw away our pencils or not yet?
I feel like that was to me. Remember at the beginning, he said Tom.
I did say Tom.
So hush.
Hush, Tony.
Thanks for mentioning that. By the way, Pencils versus Pixels. It's still out on Amazon Prime.
Love it.
Watch it if you have Prime. It's free for you.
Absolutely.
It's funny because as soon as it came out, it was outdated. I literally. Because it took so long to make, right? And we had stops and COVID and things like that throughout.
Did 2D animation change? Is that what you're saying? What happened?
No, but we have on there Alex Hirsch, creator of Gravity Falls, and he's like, "There's never been a better time to make animation. It's booming, and if you just have an idea, they're going to give you money." And he's like super up and high on how active, how much people want animation, and now we're. Literally, by the time it came out, people were getting laid off and all that. It just looked like I didn't know what I was doing or anybody knew what we were talking about. We do have an industry that's kind of goes up and down, right? And now how does that apply to AI? I'm not really sure, but I do think, this is my theory, and Tony, you can say yours next, which is, my theory is we're going to see a slump. We're going to see people just do crappy AI stuff.
Yep.
And it's already started. But we're not seeing a lot of it, or we're not knowing we're seeing it. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I do think that then we're going to see it doesn't make money for them. They saved a ton of money using it and all that, but the actual projects and things like that don't look very good, or they're just not well thought out because they try to take all the humans out. And I do think that we're going to see an upswing after that, where they're going to go, oh, wait, we did need all these storytellers. We did need these character designers. One, to make it legal, too. They're going to find out through lawsuits. That's the next landslide of things that are going to happen, which is lawsuits.
Yep, it's coming.
Where we're going to start to see, oh, no, you don't own that IP that you thought you owned because you didn't make it correctly. You were pulling out of the well that has everybody's drawings in it. So I'm hoping for an upswing, that basically the animation industry starts to use it as a tool. That was my pause for you, Tony.
I agree to disagree.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Go. Cook.
No, I actually am very positive about the future of animation because I can't imagine a future without 2D animation.
Right.
I'm putting on my old man hat right now and going, well, hey, when I was a youngster, that's all we had, and it was good enough for our generation. But it's more than that. I just feel like there's a charm and an appeal that has a magical effect on every generation that has ever seen it. And it's that handcrafted quality that I think people will always want to a certain degree. I do think it'll become more niche in the future, but I think there's going to be a pull towards it because people will be tired of what the AI systems are trying to output, what they're asking for being exactly delivered to them. And just like a spoiled child, if you give them everything that they want, they will hate it after a while. And I think that's what's going to happen with AI and technology too. And we've seen it happen at Disney, even without AI. We've seen, they're trying to react to where society is at and what they think people want, instead of just hiring directors and creatives to create out of their souls and to put their souls into their work and not to be responsive to trends and societal aspects and elements like that. I really think that if we could have a generation that comes up that is just 2D centric, that loves to draw and uses technology to benefit them however they can to go faster and cheaper, I think that's where we're going to win in the future with 2D animation.
Yeah, Tom.
Old man.
Is that what you say, old man? Yes.
As an identical twin, I'm calling you an old man. Okay.
I mean, I feel I do. I've talked about this on the podcast, but not just with animation in general, with illustration. I think that what's going on is that we're gorging on this.
Yes.
Look at this neat thing. Everyone's using AI to make like cute pictures of themselves or whatever, and it's all just copyright infringement.
Yeah.
I think in the illustration world, there is a little chatter about how you could have like a logo or so we'd all collectively agree on putting some sort of logo or something, a stamp on our website saying this was human made. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I was thinking like, gosh, it should be on the end credits of every animated film that uses AI. That might deter audiences, but then I thought, oh, and wait, I live in this world where it wouldn't. Audiences will go, oh yeah, that's cool. AI, it's neat.
Yeah,
but I think at some point,
care.
Right. But we are, I think, it feels to me anyway, in all aspects of life, from food to spending a little bit more time outside to tangible things, hand-done things, I think that's experiencing a little bit of a renaissance. And I think that applies to animation, although, again, I'm not going to speak to that with any expertise because animation isn't necessarily my what I'm most obsessed with.
It's funny because in my mind, there's a version of that I believe in. And this is going to sound negative, but I think there is a niche group out there. They were part of the hippie generation, by the way, way back when. But it's the same kind of group, is what I'm saying.
Right.
That are always seeking out the next natural, handcrafted artisan thing, right? And they're jumping from one to another, whatever's the sort of new hot thing. And that's a level of what Tony was saying too, of how people will kind of come back to a more hand-drawn because they're going to get inundated with AI and get sick of it. And I think those people have a real refined viewpoint. And they're artistic, let's put it that way, too. They have a finer eye, let's put it that way, and taste buds, too, probably, for food. And so that's the shift you'll see. But that's not everybody. I do think that the general huddled masses are not very astute about those things, or just don't care about it. They're like, no, I just want my milk when I go to the grocery store. I'm going to grab the cheapest one, right? Like that's the majority of the people out there. I happen to be one of the people that get the high protein one and I'm paying like 3 times as much. That's only for milk, Tony. Just only the milk.
Yeah, I know. But, well, we're in organic in our house.
Are you? Yeah. See, so you've been doing it for years.
Yeah. So my strawberries are more than your strawberries.
Yeah, for sure. For sure they are. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, will that save animation? Will that save hand-done illustration? That group, is it big enough? That's my question mark.
Yeah. I guess where I I think all three of us are in the same camp on this front, except, Tom, you said a pet peeve of yours is when people criticize things they've never tried or experienced. I'm one of those people.
He got you there.
When did I say that?
In one of your episodes. It's recorded. It's public.
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
He's done his research, Tom. He knows you.
No,
you know what? I'm on Giuseppe's side.
Nice.
Yeah, explain yourself.
I criticize AI all the time. I've never tried it. Not once. But the two of you have said you have.
Okay, so here's...
Well, no. First of all, how dare you? No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
yeah. Traitor!
All right, so Tom, I mean, you used Midjourney. You didn't like it, so to be fair to you, you weren't a fan of it. I don't see it as a tool. I just don't see it as a tool. I will never see it as a tool. I refuse. Talk about old man now. One of you, I can't remember which one of you. You both sound relatively the same to me. Said that
we get that a lot.
It can be a tool, and I'm sitting here, literally reshuffling my bookshelves in my office this morning, listening to you guys say something like that, and I was just like, no, how can it be? How? It's copyright infringement no matter which way you look at it.
I'm with you on the copyright infringement, but recently, this is Tony, and this is where I'm going to trample on Tom a little bit, because this is probably the only thing that I agree with Tom on, who is a little bit more pro AI than I am.
Whoa, that sounded too strong. Back off.
Oh, really? Pro? Yeah. Being
you
a little bit.
You just told all these artists that I'm pro AI.
I said a little bit more pro AI than I am.
I know.
And I'm not very pro.
Yeah, okay. Tom, I just checked Twitter and you're already being canceled. Sorry.
Yes, sorry. It's in the airwaves. Anyway, Tom's he calls himself a futurist and he likes to be projecting forward. So he's into what can help me do my work better. Nothing wrong with that, Tom. Nothing wrong.
Thank you.
So I have thought about could it be used as a tool to do ink and paint for us, to do cleanup, to do in between some of the more laborious, but yes, those are skill sets that are employable by artists.
You just fired
I know.
A bunch of people.
Yes, and some of that is I don't know how you go around any of that in the future, which I don't like either. But we're also trying to survive the art of 2D animation especially on a feature level. For Tom and I, we love feature quality kind of stuff and length.
Right.
To do that at a budget point that people will invest in, at least right now, is the difficulty. If we can have tools that will bring down our rates and our budgets, we may be able to keep 2D animation alive, at least on the independent market.
There you go. Can I jump on that? So, Tony, that's where you ended is where I start, which is I started my own company, Pencilish Animation Studios, and we are crowd invested. A lot of the people that invested in our company are artists, honestly, want to be in animation, or they already are, or they have their own idea and they want to make it into a show, and they thought investing in Pencilish would help them get closer to doing that. All those, that's the group. So I'm always looking forward and going, okay, how do we survive, one, as an animation company, but also two, as just individual artists, right? And so in the animation, so this is a little bit different, Giuseppe, from where you live, which is illustration, and it's always been one person generally doing that gig, and right? And so AI in that world, it's you or the computer, right? And so with animation, though, there's a ton of jobs. It takes hundreds of people to make, say, a feature film. In my world, as an artist, there are some jobs that potentially could go to AI. And so that's where I have that little bit of open door in my head and going, okay, we live in a world now that AI is already here, okay? It's not going to go away. You can't shut that Pandora's box. So how do we use it as a tool? And that question is what's burning in my head every day, is how do we use it as a tool? Because it's either going to be, we're either going to control it or it's going to control us. And artists are not speaking into it. I do think this is why NFTs went off the rails too, but that's another subject. It started with artists, but artists weren't involved. They were just being tapped to just draw something on a napkin and we'll put it up there and make $1 million off it. They weren't controlling it. The tech people were controlling it and trying to get greedy and using artists to make money. And all the artists ran away from it. We all went, no, NFTs are evil and blah, 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 and the energy they're using, I don't know. Whatever the reasons were, we weren't researching it. We weren't looking into it. We weren't kind of trying to see, is there a way to make this work that works for us? And so I believe, and this is back to your original question of that quote that you quoted that I don't remember saying, is I believe it because here I'm backing
very familiar.
I'm backing it up now. This is trying to answer that question of why I say it, is that I believe certain artists need to be involved in this process, or we will just be steamrolled. And you want people to be involved that have the heart for the artist. Now, will jobs go away? That's something we can't control, really. Control is not the right word, but I do think, just like Tony was saying, if we don't evolve 2D animation, and I'm being specific about 2D animation, that's been around for whatever, 80, Disney's been around for 100 years, so it's more like 100 years, then it's going to die. It's amazing it hasn't. What other industries or things are done the exact same way they were done 100 years ago? 2D animation is 80-90% done the same way it was done 100 years ago. And so why is it dying, and why are people pulling away from it? It's not the viewers that are pulling away from it. We all know that. We all love 2D. So we need to look at ways, if it's going to evolve, we need to know about it. Tony acts like he's high and mighty. He wants to know more too. So yes, he's just as evil as I am.
What I'm interested in, though, Tom, to be specific, is taking a clean library, because my biggest fear, like you brought up, Giuseppe, is copyright infringement is a big issue when it comes to AI. And I feel like it's not being addressed here in the United States. Our government's not doing anything about it. And I feel like it's just kind of free reign in the AI world. But I'm interested in what can be done with a clean, I'm calling it a clean library. I don't know what the technical term is, but where the AI has been trained only on one artist's vision. It's very much like the illegal Miyazaki AI filter that's going around, which is horrible because that wasn't approved. But that is what you get when you have a clean library of every image that Miyazaki has ever done in his life.
Wait, that's not a clean library, Tony. That's a dirty library.
Well, if it's a library of consent, if Miyazaki consents to saying, here's the entire library of Studio
You're getting
Ghibli.
the two things confused a little bit there.
No, but you're right. If he would have acknowledged that, if he would have sponsored that and approved that, it would have been a nice, clean library, because it's just the essence of one person's work, basically. It's not filtered through everything that's been swept on Instagram and everything through the beginning of sweeping, which is, we know now, has been, over 10, 15 years probably.
It's funny how pro AI folks who say it's not copyright infringement, well, to them I say, well, if it's not copyright infringement, why do you get better results using AI when you say in the style of? Right. If you just say, I want a superhero jumping off of a building or whatever, and you don't specify in the style of, you're going to get crap. But if you specify in the style of Alex Ross, you're going to get something that's still crap, but it's going to look a little better because it's stealing from Alex Ross.
It's going more direct within the pantheon of all artwork that's fed into it. If it can fine tune, then it's going more to an original source. Then it's going to be a better outcome, right? And everybody has discovered that if you played with it at all. And you're right, it is because of that very thing, because it's infringing upon that artwork. It is specifically going after that person's artwork.
Yeah, and it's not learning anything. It's just taking the pixels.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Midjourney that I first played with, but I remember early on I put in, a text sample of like a dog walking through a forest in the style of Peter de Sève. And I thought, I love Peter de Sève. He's a personal friend and a great illustrator. But I wanted to know, and I figured he has a lot of stuff out there probably. Well, it didn't do the best job, but once I added that, because I was doing that without the Peter de Sève, and you're right, it was giving me, kind of realistic dogs. And it was just all over the place because, its library of dogs is immense. But if you get specific down to Peter to Sève dogs, now it's only probably got, a couple samples to go off of. So it's going to be a lot more just like Peter.
Well, and I just want to jump in, get Giuseppe, because I look like such a bad guy. I want
to Tom.
Be clear.
Tom. No, it's just that you look weird with that outfit on.
I know.
No, come on. Are you kidding me? I could not pull that off. I got
a tank top on. I have broad shoulders. It's the only thing that looks good on me. Anyway,
you brought the guns to the conversation. I appreciate that.
I was about to work out after
the
this.
white lapel gun.
You already went for a run. We already know that. You sprinkled that in there so we could be impressed by you already, Giuseppe. So
mind reader.
I know how that happens.
Mind reader.
So here's the thing. I just want to make this clear. Everything I've said about is there a way into using AI as a tool, and again, as a tool where we're controlling it, is my only interest in AI. Mm-hmm. But what you just said, we skipped over. It's the biggest argument for every artist is we all agree, all three of us right here, and everybody listening, no, they should not be stealing. What's the word for that? Not trolling, but scraping.
Yeah.
Scraping.
Yeah,
should not be scraping photos and illustrations and drawings and all of that we already know they have. It's already
without
way too
approval.
Late.
Yeah,
without approval and all that. I just want to be very clear on that. That is the heart of why I do not like AI. It's the people behind it and the choices they have made. And by the way, almost everybody knows this, or some do, but they don't talk about it very much, which is most of the major AIs that were created and are still being used today as the heart and the engine behind most of the other AIs were all created in the name of science and nonprofit. And then they turned the switch and said, oh, no, now we're for profit. But they'd already created their engines, basically, using scraping. And then they kind of went, oh, but now we're going to buy stock photography companies and things like that. And they did. They spent some money because they had so much investment. Mm-hmm. All the VCs out there invest in AI now. They have been for a few years now. And now they're basically trying to pay off for their shareholders by just getting it out into the world in a huge, massive, everybody try it, use it for everything.
Yeah.
Nobody complains that it's a part of Google now, or it's a part of their Office thing, and it corrects their spelling, and it does all these other sort of manual tasks, because everywhere else but in the art world, it is being used like crazy and nobody cares. Actually, you see it in commercials, and we have this AI as a part of it. They're proud of it. And nobody blinks an eye. I don't hear people complaining in the offices around the world and that, oh my gosh, now my Microsoft Word has AI in it. I don't want that. No, it's only the artists that are complaining because, well, we can directly say they scraped that. You do hear it from screenwriters. They don't want their
I don't know if I totally agree with that,
their
Tom.
final
Authors
draft
and writers.
have it.
Yeah, but even if people realized it, general public, they would realize that their photos of their kids and their elderly grandparents and their families are part of that scraped inventory too.
Yeah, you're right. Most people don't know that. Yeah.
If most people knew how much that happened and how much of their personal stuff, whether it be, office forms or contracts or whatever that's out there, but also their own personal stuff, if there was part of it, people would be up in arms. And I think that's the part that I cannot wait to see happen in a bigger way. And I don't know why that balloon hasn't popped already, but I think that could be a big stall in AI. Will it stop it forever? I don't know, but I think if government gets involved and really pops that bottle.
Let me explain that slightly better, which is in the
thank you,
law,
Tom.
the law
Please
profession.
Translate for me.
The law profession. Now I'm going to give a more specific example that I think nobody would have a problem with.
I'm just going to sit back. I'm just going to sit back and listen to the Bancroft Brothers animation podcast.
We haven't really got to talk about this in depth between the two of us. In the law profession, they have fed in all of the contracts out there, right, into AI. And basically now we're going to see lawyers lose their jobs probably, or really get cut down massively, because all those boilerplate contracts have been fed in, and now you'll be able to just put in what kind of contract you want. This is what I want it to do, basically, is protect me here, blah, 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 and have these percentages, and we split this, whatever, and boom, you're going to get a contract given to you. And because the AI knows all the legal parameters of the state you live in, it's probably pretty bulletproof, right? That is a reality we already live in. Maybe you throw it to a lawyer just to double check it for like an hour, half hour of their time, which we all know is very expensive time. And boom, you're done. And so that's being used as a tool. Will we see, lawyers get let go from firms, and now firms cut down to a lot smaller size? I think for all of us, we'd be like, great, less lawyers.
Yeah.
Or the lawyers would say,
nobody likes lawyers.
The lawyer community will say, well, we don't like this. And then they'll come back. They'll be the ones pushing back. And the lawsuits maybe will get a nice little boost. And
I know.
Accountants too. I mean, in a couple of years, we'll maybe just, scan your documents, email it to an AI. I mean, it's probably already happening. And AI will do your taxes for you in seconds.
Yep.
Yeah, but once they built that, and this is sort of back to my point, is we still live in a world, I think, as artists, even with the scraping and all that, where legally we have something on our side.
Absolutely.
We have copyright on our side. Our government has said you cannot legally write a script, and this is back to the writers too, or a script or a book that is made from a prompt. Same with art. You can't create something with just a prompt that is now art and claim that copyright.
Yep.
And so I can't put in, I need to design a superhero that is this, and this, and whatever is output is not copyrightable.
But you can use AI engines to brainstorm with you, to become your writer buddy. You can start with some ideas and some prompts and then go your own direction.
Yep.
So what's going to be harder to really assess in the future is how much AI drove the creativity. In the Hollywood space, when you write a movie, and Disney has gone through this so many times in the past, they'll have 7 writers that worked on Mulan or Aladdin or something through the journey of making the film. But when it comes to credits at the end, there's actually an arbitrator that comes in from the WGA or something like that. And they have to go back and backtrack all the versions of the script. And they determine who came up with the most ideas, the most original ideas, and they put the writers in that cascade of credits.
I always thought it was just alphabetical order, but that's
no, not with writers. Other areas it can be, but not that.
And it's mostly because writers have an agency that represents them, the WGA.
Right.
The blurring of the lines of how much you pulled from AI for your creative thinking and ideas are going to be very difficult. I'm also on the Academy. I'm a member of the Academy.
Oh, I was waiting for you to mention that. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, and I co-directed Mulan, Tom. I don't know.
There it is.
I had it in my notes. I can just delete that now. It's out.
As a member of the respected Academy, we want to see original pieces made by original filmmakers and artists and creatives. And yet I could foresee in the future, as AI blends into the making of films more and more, where will those lines cross, and how will we create rules of how much AI you can use or none at all? I think we're in for a lot of different arguments and discussions about what is creativity and how do you contribute to an original idea.
I feel like in 10 years, we're going to see an interview of an author who wrote like the American novel of any century. And
the John Steinbeck of the future.
Exactly. And the interviewer will say, tell us, how did you get this idea? I mean, this book is just, this is the greatest book ever written. Oh, I just put in a couple prompts in ChatGPT and then I went from there. Like that. Yeah. Where's the mythology? Look,
that's right. I was working with my writing partner. Only everybody in the future will know that means ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. I get the last word because it's my podcast. If I were to write a book about my thoughts on AI, I would borrow from that Rage Against the Machine song, Killing in the Name of, F you, I won't do what you tell me. I would call it Killing in the Style of. And it would be a book of just me hammering AI and anyone, Tony, Tom, anyone, who says, well, I don't know, maybe we'll see. I'll just annihilate. I'm talking like scorched earth.
I would buy that book.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Moving on.
I would too. I would make it into a song. I'd feed it into Chat GPT. No. Okay. Now I don't know if you have a question behind that, but I want to hear your resolution. But yeah, go ahead.
Wait, what? My resolution?
Well, yeah, we now have AI in the world.
Okay.
You're saying you hate it and it shouldn't be here.
Yep.
How do you get rid of it?
Just like you get rid of anything that's illegal. Laws.
Okay. Yeah, use the laws.
Well, no, but that doesn't get rid of it. That shapes it. And I totally agree. You're right. We need more laws. I'm agreeing with you 100%.
Yep.
But now it's being used as a tool because the laws have made us use it as a tool.
I mean, again, I feel very much like I'm neck deep in waters that I should not be swimming in this. But the more we talk about how it's not good, hopefully, the more that spreads out into society, who ultimately we all eventually realize that as fun as it was for a couple of years in the 2020s, it turns out that it's pretty bad on many fronts. Not just, and we're not even talking about environmental damage, but also copyright infringement and all sorts of ways. It's just bad on every front. We tend to make mistakes, but we also, I feel like, bend towards correcting them. And historically, it has been proven, and I'm just focusing on Americans, but I think generally we make mistakes and we correct them. Hopefully, we'll be correcting many mistakes on the political front at some point. But my point, I guess, to all of this AI is it's illegal. Let's continue talking about how bad and illegal it is. I think that's the only way you can fight it. The more you do that, and also the dollars, like pulling the dollars away. If Disney ends up using AI for the next Marvel movie and it bombs, like what was the Marvel TV show that they used AI for the credits and everyone hammered it?
Yes, Secret Invasion or
whatever that was.
Yeah.
How well did that show do?
Right.
Not great.
Yeah. Yeah, and they probably had ChatGPT.
The show wasn't that good, though. I would say it was just the opening title sequence.
Yeah, Disney sucks.
Yeah. I mean, Giuseppe, I'm
just kidding.
I totally agree with. I think AI. Let's face it. We as society, I'm not even going to say as Americans, but as society and the world in general, we leap towards the new, the exciting. And then there's a time period of kind of everything shallowing out to see if we really like it and it'll have staying power. We're definitely in a time where AI has bubbled up across society, just like when the smartphone first came out and everybody was like, that does all these things. We leaped into it. Now, what are we seeing right now? More and more stories about how it's ruining children's brains and development. We're too reliant on it. We're not communicating as much. We're seeing all the negative elements now of us as a society going, I have to have a cell phone and I will only use a cell phone 100% of the day. And I'm going to put all my time and effort into it. We've just been sucked in. Now we have a leveling out of people backing away from cell phones, giving up their cell phones, going back to flip phones. It's not 100%. It's certainly not the majority. That means that cell phones are going to stay around, smartphones rather, are going to stay around. But we're definitely in that stage with AI. I believe you're right, Giuseppe, that legal actions and the government is finally going to catch up with all the devious stuff that's been happening in the name of science or whatever over the last 10 years with AI. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a leveling out. And some people are going to drop out of the business altogether. Some things are not going to happen like they were going to. But will it go away? Probably not. So I guess to me, it's a matter of like, how do we make AI good and work for us will be probably where we end up. I will say, this is my contrast to what you said, Giuseppe, is that my way to confront AI is to make great handcrafted 2D animation. That's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. I want to be part of that, where we show. Yeah.
Now you're talking.
We show the public, we show the world. This is what you're missing out of as you flow so quickly and eagerly into the womb of AI, is that you are just giving up on what could be. And there's still a lot of could be out there in our minds.
Well, and I do agree that I think we see handcrafted things rise, but in a very smaller group, right? Like we've already seen a dwindling of how many hand-drawn 2D animated studios are out there in the world. It's already dropped drastically because of computers, right? When CG animation came out. Now we're going to see it drop even more because there's only so much room and money and all that's going to go allocated for that handcrafted thing. Yes, it will still be around. Is it a gamble to say I want to be that studio that does 2D hand-drawn? I'm going to take the high road. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I do believe in that too, Tony. I don't want everybody to think I'm not that guy. I am that guy. I want to do the whole 2D thing. Mm-hmm. Back to my original thing that you tagged me with, is I just don't want
Tom, if it's any consolation, after this recording, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to go downstairs and get a drink of water, and I'm just going to start beating myself up. I'm being completely honest and serious. I will start beating myself up and going, oh my fucking God, I got Tom Bancroft to sound like a villain, and now I feel terrible, and I will feel terrible for the foreseeable future.
But you did it using a quote.
Well done,
I said that, so actually it's guilt on my side. Obviously I didn't explain it very well.
Pardon my language, by the way.
We don't here. Just to clarify one more time, we all don't have to go out and use Midjourney. Okay, I'm not saying that us as artists need to try to adapt to them. Right, when we feel strongly they've done it wrong.
Yeah.
But we do need to, second to us hating it and really getting out there and saying this is wrong, and we need people doing that. I totally agree with you, Giuseppe. But it's naive to just stop there. We need to, as artists, say, but we also need to be involved in how this is controlled, because just filling out a, what do you call them, a petition.
Yeah.
There's people doing petitions. Have we ever seen that work really in the past? I mean, we're doing that just to feel better about ourselves and to bind together and say, yes, I believe in this idea. And so we sign that petition. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just, it doesn't work. We need to not be naive and go, okay, what's the next step we need to be doing? Okay, we need to research this. We need to know as much as they know about this subject and see the flaws in it, and then go and hopefully be a part of the litigation that gets created to control it. And so we need those artists too, to be doing that kind of work. By the way, that's not me, but I'm not smart enough. But hopefully there's lawyer artists out there that can do that kind of work, or we need to combine with them. But that's how real change happens.
Yeah.
We can't be naive and just sign petitions and just go, I hate it. This is what's wrong about it. That is phase one. I'm not saying that's wrong. But phase two is, goodness, we got to be involved in solving it.
Yeah. Look, I'll say this one thing about how I think it will eventually turn toward good. We all thought 100 years ago, 80 years ago, that cigarettes were good for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, silly.
Yeah.
And now we
Crazy.
don't.
Yeah.
We all thought 20 years ago that gas guzzling behemoth trucks were the future, and now it's all electric, save the environment type of. So like we all at some point go, wow, this is cool, let's do it. And then we quickly realize, again, we make the mistake, but we do correct it. History has shown that eventually we do come around. I hope that AI won't take 80 years for us to go, wow, that was a big gaffe on our part. Hopefully it's 8 weeks. Hopefully it's 8 days. Hopefully it's 8 fucking hours. God, I don't know why I'm cussing. Another reason for me to feel terrible about myself after our conversation. Oh my God. I cussed the Bancrofts because you guys never cuss. Anyway, moving on. Gosh, that was a long AI. How many? Now here's.
Yeah, we didn't talk about making cartoons.
Yeah.
How many people have
spam hitting their fast forward button on their podcast players? Like, oh my God, still.
They're still. When are they going to get to those Disney films they made? Oh well, next is part 2 of the Illustration podcast. We'll have the Bancroft Brothers talking about cartoons.
I think. Hey, Giuseppe. Yeah. This is going to be your most popular podcast, I think.
Oh boy.
Let's land it there. Just feel good about that.
Tom's a futurist, so if he makes that prediction,
I hope because it's true. You guys, and you guys are great, and I hope not because I don't want AI bros coming at me. Actually, yeah, I do. I do want them to come at me. Go ahead.
Well, you've been very, very consistent about how you feel about AI, Giuseppe. You're very consistent and very anti. So you're going to have a lot of friends.
This podcast is produced by the Illustration Department, a global leader in online education for illustrators. Visit illustrationdept.com for offerings like mentorships and portfolio reviews, testimonials, our alumni showcase, our best-selling Substack, and more. That's illustrationdept.com. And now, back to our conversation. The two of you have created pretty memorable characters over the years for Disney, Tony with Lion King's Pumbaa, Tom with Mulan's Mushu. And those are just 2 grains of sand on the beach of both of your contributions to the animation world over the years. And that includes directing, teaching, advocating, and character design. So let's start with Tony.
Oh, is this the intro to the podcast now? Are we?
I think we just started over.
We started over. Ahead. Let's start with Tom, actually. Let's start with Tom.
Okay.
Tom, what should listeners think about when they think about character design? Whether it's for animation, illustration, books, whatever.
Mm-hmm. The quickest answer is, how does that character fit into the story? If we're not thinking about the character's role and how it's going to be involved in whatever that story is, comic book, animation, children's book, you name it, then you're just drawing lines. And I'm going to go to the artistic side of that, which is I believe in shape-based character design.
Yeah. Same.
That you're drawing shapes, not just with lines, but not just lines to create shapes. There is a difference. And so therefore you got to know where to go. Which shapes am I going to use? And if I don't know the character's personality, because you can even go as basic as, a circular shape is for a character that's bouncy and warm and happy, and more angles, that would be probably a villain character, and things like that, more rectangular, or especially triangles. Therefore, I guess the long story short of that is, yes, you got to know the character's personality and what you're designing. Otherwise, you're just doing drawings in a sketchbook.
Tony?
Ditto.
Okay. Tony was on his email just now. Go ahead.
No. I was like, no.
I mean, that's a great answer.
I didn't expect that to come to me, but I agree with Tom. It really does start with the performance, the role that the character has, and shaping that in your mind. And I do believe that we don't, especially these days, I'm sounding like an old man again these days, these kids. But I would say many of us, and I see this in my students that I teach, they roll into a design very quickly from a standpoint of, like, even if they are thinking about shapes, right, they're not thinking deeply enough. I think as artists, we need to spend time in our own mind, in our own head, conjuring up images and thoughts about the character before we even put pencil to paper or stylus to walk them. We really need to be thinking first about what is the most important element and the essence of what we're trying to create. Yeah. And so that's just a different way of saying what Tom was saying. But to me, it's about preparation, and that's the most important first step of preparation.
Agreed, obviously. When I talk to illustrators about this, shapes for sure. If there's a shapelessness to your character, then there's no connection. I don't really feel any clarity. I don't see any clarity in what that character is doing or feeling or anything. Mm-hmm. It isn't just like a bunch of random, like, oh yeah, I'll just use shapes, like random, like circle and triangle and a couple of rectangles, and there you go, I have a character. Who the character is will dictate what shapes you use. You guys mentioned Peter to Sève. He's really good at that, obviously. Yes. So is Carter Goodrich for my book, He's the best at doing that. What I would add to that is, that plus body language. Personality affects body language. Some of us have great posture, some of us don't. Some of us fiddle with our fingers when we're nervous, some of us don't. So, like, what, to Tony's point about, like, just thinking a little bit deeper, how does this character even react with scenarios within the world that they live, and how does their body even subconsciously respond to those things? Do they turn their feet in because they're a little shy or trying to be protective? Are their shoulders in or out? Those little nuances in body language, I think, plus the shape language, can really help any illustrator, any animator tell a story.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that too, Giuseppe. I teach a character design class this semester. So just yesterday I was talking to my students, and I like to review by going over their work. I think that's the best way to learn, is from having somebody, a professional or somebody that has more experience, to actually draw over your drawings.
I do the same.
When I do that, I always talk about, it's the number one thing I see is that people will go to stock, beginning character designers, they'll go to stock poses that they've seen before, whether it be from Gravity Falls or that Batman New Adventures of Batman series that they grew up with, or whatever it is, and they'll regurgitate poses that they liked, that they've seen, that they've drawn before, but it doesn't fit that character that they're trying to design. So I always ask them questions. So what is this character? What is their part? What is their role? What is their personality? And then I recraft a pose riffing off of what they've done, and said, you're not communicating that here. Look at this. If you just turn the head a little bit, add a tilt, add a pivot into the waist, add a shift of weight here, not only will it probably look more natural as a pose, but also you can get a pose that's a lot more specific to that character. And then none of the other characters in your lineup from the story, because we're going over like character lineups right now, should look the same, should have the same pose, should be the same proportions. All of that needs to be new and different. And it's all based 100% on who they are as a character.
Right. Like, look at the three of us. The listener can't see us, but Tom is leaning back with his arm, like his left arm over. Yeah. There's a comfortable, I was going to say comfortability. Is that even a word? Comfortability?
No.
Do you guys ever do that on your podcast where you think you know what a word is, and then when you say it out loud, it doesn't sound at all English?
Yeah, that's all right.
We just keep going.
I'm keep going. So there's a comfortability with Tom's posture.
They're going with you. Don't worry.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Tony's more just like upright, leaning forward because you're engaged. I have my legs crossed. My right arm is sort of relaxed on my left leg, and my left arm is tense and holding like my computer and touching keys and whatnot. So there's a little contrapposto action happening, Italian.
Oh, good.
But see what I'm saying? Like, all three of us, completely different ways of sitting down.
Yeah,
that's true. What I usually see, again, this is with illustration, and I'm going to go ahead and assume you guys see this with like character lineups and designs and animation, is you have three dudes talking on a podcast, and what I would usually see if I saw that as an illustration is all three of them are sitting exactly the same way. They're all completely upright at a 90-degree angle. Their legs are at a 0-degree angle. Their shoulders and their hips are at 0-degree angles. And I don't care what style you're working in, that just doesn't work.
Right.
Not
interesting either. Pretty much nobody. What it makes it look like is those people just sat down, because we all start in that sort of start position, but then we all sag in different ways, right? And I'm going to jump on that real quick with an example, and it's just a little bit of a behind the scenes, so hopefully people will like it. I didn't work on this film because it's computer animation, and I've stayed 2D my whole life. But Big Hero 6, when they first were developing that movie, and it's out there on YouTube, you can find this. What they did is, and I don't know if it was the directors or the head of animation or who decided to do this, but what they did was they gave all the characters, Honey Lemon, and I can't remember all their names, but Baymax, and there's like 5 or 6 of those main characters, and even the mom, I think, too. And they gave different animators a character, and they said, okay, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to have this character walk in a door and sit down at a table at like a coffee shop or something like that. It was that basic of an assignment. And they said, but we want to see the character's personality and how they come in the door, how they sit down, and then whatever resolution you have right after that. And I'm telling you, it's just watching them back to back to back and seeing what the solutions that these animators came up for each character. That character just from that simple,
just by how they sit down,
basically 1 or 2, 3 actions, right? And it's mostly, the heart of it is just them sitting down. It's amazing. So to your point, go check that out. Look up the Big Hero 6 animation test or whatever.
That is the essence. I'll just jump on that just real quick and say that is the essence of what we do in animation. Is we create performances, we create characters, and whether you're a character designer, whether you're an animator, CG, 2D, if you're not putting the character first in your mind and you're not trying to become that character and make them unique, you're not doing your job. So it has to start there, has to end there.
Let's have some fun, as if what we've been doing thus far hasn't been fun, but let's just play a little game.
I'm doing this 2-hour podcast. Holla.
Oh, goodness. So sorry.
Let's go.
I'm just wasting all of your time.
No, keep going.
There are plenty of animation greats, obviously, who have been celebrated and studied. For example, Tom Bancroft. For example, Glen Keane, of course.
He's
you guys
being
mentioned.
Nice to me now.
I know. I'm so sorry, Tom. I'm so sorry.
He's got guilt.
I do. So there's
right,
Glen Keane, right? Obviously. Glen Keane, he helped, for people who don't know, he helped bring Little Mermaid and other classics to life. Gustaf Tenggren, who was a Disney painter 100 years ago, turned renowned Golden Books creator. Retta Scott, the first American woman to receive an online credit as an animator. Floyd Norman, the first black animator to work for Disney. For the sake of time, I'm just focusing on Disney animators, but obviously we can expand this to other studios, paging Hayao Miyazaki, etc. The question is, who in animation should get far more attention? Who hasn't been praised as much as they deserve?
Oh gosh, that's a huge list. Wow.
It's a big list. Yeah.
That is a big list. Well, Tony Bancroft's at the top. And then after that, I mean, we mentioned him here. Carter Goodrich, I have so much respect and love and appreciation for, and what he's contributed is huge. Peter Sève on the character design side also. Jen Cam. These are just people I've known and worked with from the Disney studios. But Jen Cam, who is a master character designer.
Let's stick with Disney just to not offend
Just
anybody.
to keep it simple.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I mean, because there's so many more. But I would say Jen, and I'm just thinking of like mostly character designers that are popping in my mind right now.
Well, right. And we can expand this out. Like I have one. He did not work for Disney. He worked for
Bill Peet.
Bill Peet. Okay.
Bill Peet.
Mine is Eugene Deitch.
Yes.
Oh,
he
Canadian.
Was he Canadian? I think he was an Illinoisan.
Okay. I know who you're talking about, right?
He won an Oscar for Monroe.
Monroe. Well, didn't he come out of the UPA studios? He had more of that UPA kind of real graphic, shape-based kind of drawing.
He directed 13 episodes of Tom and Jerry. He helped produce Mighty Mouse, one of my favorites when I was a kid.
Yep.
And Gandy Goose. And one quick little story about Deitch, which I absolutely love, because as a kid, I actually noticed this flex. If you watch Tom and Jerry, like a later season, I don't remember if it was when it started, maybe season 3. Tom and Jerry's design, the whole thing just looked different. It sounded different. There was less audio. I mean, there was less kind of everything because it was Hanna-Barbera. I don't know. Is it Barbara? I've heard people pronounce it Barbara, but it's Barbera.
Well, they're saying it wrong. Yeah, it's Barbera.
Yeah, so it's William Hanna, Joseph Barbera. Then I mean MGM Studios hired Deitch and paid a fifth of the $50,000 that they had per episode for Hanna-Barbera. So to keep costs down, Deitch simplified Tom and Jerry's design. Sound was almost non-existent. There were like the odd boinks and slide whistles and things. With those limited resources, there was still a very beloved season of 13 episodes of Tom and Jerry. So anyway, I love Gene Deitch. Great contributor to...
Okay.
You're going to get Tom and I started. Yeah. I'm just like winding up.
Hated those Tom
Those were my least favorite years of Tom and Jerry. I know exactly what you're talking about, Giuseppe. Tom and I think we can speak for Tom too. We grew up with Saturday morning cartoons. We grew up with Tom and Jerry. And we were avid fans of the Chuck Jones, particularly the Chuck Jones era of Tom and Jerry. And there was a lot of eras. If anybody knows about Tom and Jerry, there was a lot of different. There was the Fred Quimby years and all that kind of stuff.
I could see the Fred Quimby cursive. Oh, beautiful.
Yes, I know. So great. And those were so classic. Those are beautiful, really well crafted, expensive cartoons, I would say. And then Chuck Jones was probably somewhere in the middle. The Deitch years always felt like a record scratch in the history of design and animation and craftsmanship in the Tom and Jerry canon of cartoons.
I'm going to be the one to soften that, Tony.
Okay, go for it.
I totally respect Giuseppe that you brought him up and used that in a positive, because that's cool that some people saw that as a kid. You're saying you were seeing that and recognizing the difference. It kind of says something about you, and I mean that in a compliment, not in a bad way.
Some people like Jar Jar Binks, Tom.
Oh, right. Yeah. Did you? Oh, Giuseppe probably did.
Oh, God, no. Are you kidding?
No, but I actually do kind of think that's interesting that you went there to the thing that Tony and I probably hated the most, honestly. You went the exact opposite and said, no, I respect it for these reasons. And as a kid, you didn't know about the budget part of it, right? But you actually saw that artistically a value in that. I think that's cool, because you're right. They look very different. It just happened to be more your sensibility. You like the UPA probably and all that kind of stylized kind of look. And
I did.
I could appreciate that. Real quick, I never got to answer your original question. I'm going to say it really quick. I'm going to stay with Disney. I'm going to stay with animator, because you said animator.
Yep.
Randy Haycock. He was our generation of animators. He came about the same age. And we were sort of like that second generation, third generation, 9 old men is what I call us. We're second generation to the Glen Keanes and the Mark Henns and the people from that were there from the 70s that were also there in the 90s. We were all trained by them, the Glen Keanes.
Yeah.
And so was Randy. And Randy's a very quiet guy and has been there for many years. He was one of the last animators, honestly. I think on paper, I think he's still with Disney, but he works from home and has for years now. By the way, there's only, I want to say this out loud because your people probably don't know this. There is only about 3 2D animators officially on the payroll at Disney now. And 3 might be a stretch. It used to be 5, and Mark Henn retired. Eric Goldberg, by the way, is more than one step out the door, because he now doesn't even live in California. He's, I think, now fully committed to living with his wife in another, I can't remember which one, another state.
Yeah.
Randy is 1 foot out of the door. They don't get used a whole lot, but they've kept a few people on the payroll. Eric has been the one that's been the most busy, Eric Goldberg, who created the Genie, because he tends to head up anything that's 2D. He sort of becomes the instant director of that project. That's where we are. And so I wanted to shout out to Randy Haycock, because, again, he was one of the last of us out the door. And, again, I think he's still got 1 foot in.
Yeah.
He stayed a lot longer than Tony and I did. We were there for actually only 12 years, and he lasted 22, or I can't remember, but he's been there for a while. So shout out.
I'm putting my feet in the shoes of a listener who wants to get into animation. They just heard you say that. What would you say to folks who want to get into, because I talk to people too, illustrators who I mentor will say, I also want to be a character designer. I want to get into visual development, concept art, whether it's for movies or video games, TV shows, etc. What would you say to that person? Here's what you should be doing or thinking about if you want to get into animation.
You know, the grass is always greener on the other side of the hill. That's why I think there's so many artists out there that are like, I do children's book, but what I really want to do is be a viz dev artist over at Disney or in animation. And I think that's a natural thing for a lot of people to do, because we're always looking for something new, something exciting, something original.
And many animators want to be story or, children's book illustrators.
Yeah. And it's always
historically they have been. Look at Aurelius Battaglia, another Disney animator turned Golden Books illustrator.
Or we can do it even faster.
Yeah.
Because we're used to drawing fast.
Well, and there's this, feeling that, maybe they have a happier life. Maybe they're making more money over there. So I really want to do that. But for the students and the younger generation that are like breaking in, by now they probably, we've had so many years where CG kind of rules now, in at least on the feature level. TV is a way of getting into 2D, but 2D animation specifically, not like character design or viz dev or something like that. 2D animation is hard to find as an employable job these days, and to keep employed. There might be one that pops up at a studio every once in a while, but usually that's more on the independent front. You got to make connections with companies that are doing commercials or doing industrial videos or things like that to do 2D animation these days, or foreign projects if you can get on those. But the bigger studios in Hollywood aren't really producing that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's happening pretty much, because production has gone overseas, and when I say overseas, I'm including Canada, so much production for features anyway, and TV shows for that matter, have gone overseas into other companies outside of the US. So if you want to stay in the US, you're pretty much doing pre-production work, development work. Those beginning stages is all that's really available in town. You can be a writer, you can be a storyboard artist, a character designer, a viz dev artist, and that's about it. If you're going to stay in animation, all that's happening outside of the US for the most part. And it's really just the niche stuff, the niche commercial.
I'm just gonna add to that, which is, to be even more specific, there are no 2D animation jobs at studios anymore. It doesn't exist, and that's the sad reality. You only have freelancers out there grabbing the commercials, or the ones that come along every once in a while where they need an element of 2D. That goes to freelancers. And I'm talking about even at the big studios, because they don't have work enough for them. Like I just said, Disney only has 2 to 3 people. Mm-hmm. And even those, I'm not 100% sure, are still really 100% attached. What is available, and I want to be very specific, the low-hanging fruit for most people that want to draw and be involved in animation is storyboarding. I would say second to that is prop design, because it's a very good entry-level job. They'll try new people in prop design, although I do think they don't need that many people doing prop design. It's not very sexy either. It's kind of I'm drawing a vase today or whatever, but in the style of The Simpsons. Okay. The other side of that is storyboarding. You need a multiple storyboard artists per TV series or feature film. Right. And so that's why that's a better low-hanging fruit. It's a little harder to break into. To be entry level, you're going to start as a storyboard revisionist. You're going to be making changes to other people's storyboards because they've moved on to the next sequence, and they're because they're needed elsewhere. But those are the targets. What everybody wants to be is a concept artist of environments, or they want to be a character designer. I'm going to warn you, out of those two, character designer is one of the hardest jobs to get, because when you think about it, you only need 1 or 2 on every production, especially once they've decided what style they're going to go in on the feature film side. Right. And on the TV side, you may be an assistant to one, kind of like the storyboard vision use. So you can be a character design assistant or something like that. And you're doing the turn sheets, right? Different angles of the character, probably a little bit more technical side. After the Steven Silver, who did Kim Possible, he designs, the main characters from a different 1 or 2 angles. His assistant would probably do the other ones, and then other costume designs too. That's another part that they could get involved in as entry-level character designer, is now what do they look like in their baseball uniform, that kind of thing for each episode. So just to be clear, that's kind of where that goes. Everybody wants to be a concept artist, and those are hard to get jobs. Make sure you're good at 2 things is kind of the way I like to put it to a lot of our students is, yes, you can be the best at this one thing, and you should be able to verbalize that. I am a character designer, but I also do storyboards. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you get that character design job, but you want to get hired for something, and hopefully that number 2 position is the one they're hiring for, and you get that storyboard job to get your foot in the door.
Yep. Again, I'm thinking of the listener who's like, yeah, that sounds great. I'll do all of those things. Other than listening to the Bancroft Brothers animation podcast, obviously.
Right.
What's one
number 1
thing outside of put together a portfolio, what's one very tangible thing they can look to, go to, one resource to help them further understand what their possibilities are and what their opportunities are in animation?
Instagram, social media. I would say, it's amazing. Well, I mean, I go to a Christian, or I work at a Christian university, Lipscomb University in Tennessee here. So I will say that some of my students have been homeschooled or a little sheltered and been told to stay off of social media. But I'm constantly having to tell my students, get on social media, get into Instagram. That's
as an old man saying that. That's crazy, isn't it?
You kids better get off my lawn and get onto Instagram. But
I'm the same way, though. I've had, I mean, it's the same group because I teach at Lipscomb also. But I'm always surprised how they, and I think it's just introverts, right? We tend to be, as artists, introverts. And so it's not just that these kids are extra geeky. All of us are geeks a little bit. And so I do think that we have a tendency to not want to put our stuff out there, especially beginners, right?
We're embarrassed.
They're the hardest people. They think that's for when I make it. Then I'll start posting.
Illustrators are the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's because Instagram has created a culture which has pros and cons to it, but where we basically look at our idols and we see them posting every day and we look up to them and we're like, I'll never be that good. And it creates a stigma. This is the negative side. Creates this stigma of, it's great to have goals, but these are the legends that are out there posting every day. There's only a handful of them, and I'll never be in that context. Instead of going, this is for everybody. This is an art community that exists online at your fingertips. There's pros and cons to that, but the pros should outweigh the cons, and I think they do. I'm a big proponent of posting your work. Yes, curating your page as much as you can, but post your work. Let people know who you are. Create a voice for yourself. Become an individual, because that's what's going to make you cut across everything else. All the portfolios that the recruiters are seeing at conventions and expos, one after another, they look exactly the same. If you've got a unique voice, and you should be trying to create a unique voice for yourself and your art, put it out there so people they know who you are. Recruiters tell me all the time, and this is for those that are the students out there that are wondering about how do they break through. Recruiters have divisions now at all the studios where all they do is go through ArtStation and Instagram and LinkedIn, and they're hitting all the social network sites, and that's where they're finding the diamonds in the rough. And those people are getting jobs.
Disney reference.
By just posting. Yes, that was an Aladdin reference. Good ear.
Good one.
But that's where they're finding people these days. Even more so, because they have 24-hour recruiters not 24 hours, but full-time recruiters that are looking at social media. They're finding more people there than they are at the expos and the conventions. Now, it's still good to do those things too, because the number one thing that I'm really preaching about is connections. You've got to have connections. You got to be putting yourself out there. I have a student, I can't tell you how truly amazed I am by this student's work, and how truly disappointed I am that nobody knows. Fellow students are like, oh yeah, I know this guy. I'm just going to call him Greg. Oh yeah, I've heard of Greg. I've never seen his work before. And these are students that are in the trenches with him every day or in classes, and he's hiding, keeping his talent under a bushel. That's a Bible reference for you, Giuseppe. And instead of really letting it shine brightly, he is just hidden away so much, not only on Instagram and social media, but even his own students, his fellow students don't even really know how good he is.
I have a mentee who's like that, who right now I'm currently working with this person, and their work is outstanding, 100% publishable, absolutely.
Yeah, already pro standard, right?
Rivals anyone who's currently being represented by agents, and they just have a really tough time sharing that work.
I used to have a business partner who's also an artist.
But he got into AI and he's successful now.
Yeah, his name is Sam Altman.
Yeah, he's a doctor. No, but he, and because some of it is how we grew up, right? He had a real hard, but was kind of adamant about it. Like, no, you don't talk about yourself. This was part of his teaching, coming from the South and stuff like that, and humility and all of that. But it was taken so far that I'm like, we're running a company. We got to be out there. We got to have our stuff out there that they're not going to know we are around. And it's marketing and all that. And he'd be like, he'd bristle at every time, we'd put up a post or things like that. And this was years ago. I don't know if he'd still be that way, but I started realizing, wait a second, this is, there is a way to do it where you're not bragging, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a way to do it where you're just saying, here's the newest thing I did. And I'm just want you to look at it, and that's kind of what Instagram is for, I think, Tony and I especially, is just like, I know there's people out there that like to see this. I like to see everybody else's stuff. So I'm just feeding you what I think, what I would want to see.
Yeah. And don't be negative about it too. That's the part I would add to it, is like, there's so many, they're going to post something because they feel like they should, or they have to, or something. But, I wasn't really, it's kind of crappy. I wasn't really excited about this one, but I wanted to share it anyway. But, and then they'll always have a but, and they'll always tear it down a little bit.
Right.
That's not the way to do it either. You could say, I feel like I'm learning and growing, and there was some things I kind of liked about this, so I'm sharing it with you. Just put the positive spin on it.
Exactly.
And we don't need to go any past this, but last thing I would say is 0.1% should be pictures of you. It's my pet peeve. A lot of us don't have websites anymore because we've gone so full into Instagram. I want to see what you look like every once in a while. It could be just you working on it, and it's like a tutorial or whatever. If I'm hiring someone, that's the other part that I want to see, which is, especially a video. If I see a video of them, I'm going to click on that because now they're talking. I get to see them. Are they natural feeling? Would I want to work with that person? And believe me, that is more important than you think it is. People have
you're
to
saying
imagine.
This is a positive. So you're saying
I'm saying it's a positive. Don't do a lot of it. That's why I said 0.1%, or just a 1%. But that stuff matters.
Thank you for saying that. I tell that to illustrators every single day.
Yeah.
I need to see, just put your photo. I mean, first of all, have a website. Absolutely have a website. Don't not have a website. And in your bio, you should have a photograph of yourself. Not because I need to see what you look like, because it humanizes the art, especially nowadays. And plus, the only other good reason you want to use social media if you want to get into animation is, how else are you going to feed AI? Where else are they going to go to scrape imagery? So that's
right.
Think of Sam Altman, guys.
How can you help out AI a little bit?
Right.
Too?
Think of Mira Marathi.
Show a little love. Right.
How is she going to eat today? I don't know if you know who Mira Marathi is, but
I don't really know.
No. She's a former OpenAI executive who a couple of years ago, I want to say, maybe last year, had a disastrous interview in which she was basically saying, essentially it was like, screw creators. Create with AI, and creators, if you don't like it, to hell with you.
I do remember that. I didn't remember her name, but yeah.
Oh, I remember her name because it's very close to my sister's name, and so it's now burnt into my skull. So instead of like
Italian.
We are very spiteful.
Gisela,
we never forget.
Is it Valentina?
What, my sister's name?
That?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I won't say it out loud. I will say, however, both my sisters' names, both of you will appreciate this, has a lot to do with Christianity in the Bible.
Oh,
me too.
Nice.
I mean, Giuseppe's Joseph.
Mary. It's got to be
I did
Mary
not
then.
know that. Giuseppe's Joseph. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Tommaso and Antonio. I should just call you guys that. Tommaso and Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a Thomas in the Bible. I don't know about Antonio.
He doubted.
There's an Anthony. Saint Anthony? Is there is Anthony mentioned in the Bible?
I know.
No, I think as a saint came later.
He came. Right? Yeah, he was in the. They came in the reprints, maybe, or just the book 2 in the sequel, which didn't do as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
saints are like later apostles, basically. Kind of.
To believe it. I grew up Catholic.
What are we talking about? What are we talking
about? Christianity and talking about religion in the art world. No problems ever come out of that. I mean, no one ever gets upset about talking about our faith.
And politics,
And politics. Speaking of politics, no, I'm kidding. So I usually end episodes with like asking my guest for a piece of advice. You guys have given a ton of advice. We're super long on the time. I'll end it this way. I haven't listened to every episode of yours. Sorry. But yeah, I know. But the ones I have heard, you end with animate from the heart. I believe it's a Glen Keane quote, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. Yes.
It is, yes.
So in 10 seconds each, starting with Tom, what does that mean?
Okay, I have the drawing that we took that from on my wall. It's a drawing of Ariel that I pulled out of I at the end of our internship, I asked him, could I have a drawing? And he was working on Little Mermaid at the time. I'm giving a backstory just because it's interesting.
All right, more than 10 seconds.
And he pulled out this drawing of Ariel that he'd just thrown away, and it's a really nice one. And he put to Tom, animate from the heart, Glen Keane. Later on, I saw him about the time he put out Dear Basketball with Kobe Bryant. This was years later. I saw him at CTN, and I said, will you sign it, animate from the heart? And he literally said, why? And I said, well, because I figured that's the way you kind of sign most of your stuff, because you did it for me years ago on Little Mermaid, and I told the story. He did not remember it, and I think he did it as a unique thing, which is so Glen Keane. I don't think he did it all the time. Like, I just assumed he did.
Right.
So I guess I tell that story to say that for me, animate from the heart is a personal thing from Glen Keane. He had a passion for characters, and they always came from his heart. And what I learned from that is I need to think that way too, that every character is alive, and if it is in your head and in your heart, you'll get it on the page.
Tony?
It's that and so much more, because Glen was one of those guys that would write some new phrase or something like that. He never just signed, truly yours, or,
right.
Yeah, kick butt or anything like that, or some little, I had another animator friend that would always sign, and he would always put some kind of pun about the movie or something as his little sign off on a signature. But Glen was the one that was always like searching deeper. And when you think of Glen Keane, you think of an actor's actor. I know I do. To me, that's what he was at the studio, was what made him the rock star that he was. Yes, he drew well and had a lot of energy in his drawings and all that, and you could put those up on posters and be amazed by them. But what made them unique and what made him unique is that he always came about acting and creating a performance and creating a heart to his characters like no other before him, including the 9 Old Men. He was taught by them, and yet somehow he got just the very best from them and infused it into his work. And he's a person that has a big heart anyway. And so when I think of animate from the heart, I think of Glen, and I think of everything that we've talked about on this podcast, which is why we start from reflecting on who the character is and who they should be. And that's the starting point for all creativity in what I do in animation, for sure.
I feel like you just said the same thing I said.
I did, a little bit.
In a different way.
Listen to the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. If you find value in this podcast, you can support it by subscribing to my best-selling Substack. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you will access hundreds of articles on the art, practice, and history of illustration, unlock bonus podcast episodes called Extra Credit, and connect with other members of the ID community. Join me on Substack by visiting illustrationdEpt.substack.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.